You're listening to Tabletop Arcanum, a podcast dedicated to learning and exploring the hobby of tabletop gaming. Your hosts are Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, so sit back and relax as we talk, discuss, and joke our way through the hobby we love so much.
Welcome to Tabletop Arcanum. We're your hosts,
Justin
and Ricky.
We have, an adjustment. We're not going to be talking about Point Salad directly this time. We're actually going to move that review to the next episode, but that's only because we got the opportunity to talk to the designers behind Point Salad and about their new upcoming game, Dollars to Donuts, and everybody knows donuts are better than salad.
I mean, it is an arguable fact that is backed by science. So, before we jump into that, Justin, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing some board games. Point Salad, to get ready for the review and talk about it some more, and also it's a nice light game that it's very easily played and quick. We played a little bit off the shelf of Shane recently. I got the Legend of Drist, a D&D adventure tile game, kind of a dungeon crawler with scenarios, and got through 4 or 5 of the scenarios. We got about half of it done, because I think there's 12 or 14 in the book. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we got a good chunk of that down, and that was just kind of like, hey, we got this game, keep going, keep going. Then I also played Ticket to Ride with the Lady, which was my best Ticket to Ride game yet. I got my new best score, which was nice. It was nice to actually like, hey, I know this is a personal best. I have not done this good. And it was pretty much dominating the East Coast and then farming for tickets to get more, like, I'm already connected to these 2 cities.
Satisfying.
And I'll get more points. Or I'm not connected. I'm connected to one of these cities, and I'm literally 1 route away from the other city on this card. Might as well grab that. West Coast cities, nope, goes back to the pile. And then Mansky Caper from Calliope Games, played a little bit of that too. A little bit of a heist, push your luck limit game, trying to steal stuff from the boss's mansion, but all his safes are rigged to explode. So hopefully you don't explode and you get the loot, and then you can stash the loot and get the most loot out of the crew.
Who doesn't rig all their safes to explode?
Well, when it's in your mansion and the rooms get destroyed, like, it's kind of one of those, like, I hope he has a backup plan or a really good insurance policy. Because,
yeah, it's definitely the insurance.
Because if you blow up your mansion on purpose, you got to have a plan. What about you? What have you been playing?
Of course, Point Salad. My girlfriend has been loving it. But on top of that, we also have been playing, of course, Harry Potter and Monopoly Draw. It's been a lot of lighter games for us, something that we both can enjoy while we're still being isolated. But so without further ado, here is our interview with Robb and Shawn from Flatout Games. Enjoy.
Hi, and welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. We got you guys from Flatout Games. We have both Shawn and Robb. Thank you for joining us and taking time out to talk to us.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Let's start with who you guys are and what you do over at Flatout Games.
All right, well, I'm Shawn Stankiewicz, 1/3 of the Flatout Games board game design and publishing collaborative. Lifelong gamer. Actually started off with a lot of video games when I was younger, and just recently kind of got into hobby board games with the Catan and Carcassonne kind of wave. And actually, all of Robert, Molly, and I kind of got into it at a similar time and started playing games together. And over the past, I guess it's been almost 3 years now, we've been designing and now publishing games together as a team. So we're just a collaborative of keen gamers who decided to try our hand at doing some board game design. And, a few years later, we've got a few published games under our belt, a few that we have published with sort of other publishers, as well as one game that we launched on Kickstarter ourselves last year, which is a game by a friend of ours, and we have another one coming as well. So we kind of do all of board game design, development, publication, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a really wild ride over the last 3 years, and that's kind of what we're all about. What would you add to that, Robb?
Yeah, you said it pretty much. I'd say the exact same thing, except I'm one of the other thirds. So Yeah, with Sean and Molly out west, myself in central Canada or whatever, so we're kind of spread out all over. But really, when we went into this, it was pretty much let's try and do a little bit of everything, and so far we've stayed true to that, both designing our own and then developing and publishing others. It's been a really cool experience to do a little bit of everything.
Nice. That's actually super cool. That you guys are not only young in the industry wise, but then got a couple games on your belt already and pushing forward to the future. So that's awesome. One thing that we always ask our guests is, what have you guys been playing lately? I would say playtesting your own games is kind of assumed, but is there anything else that you guys have been jamming on that you've been liking?
For myself, recently got in first game of Horrified, which was did go pretty well. It was pretty harsh. We played 5-player, which I don't know. More people out on the map means maybe a little bit more chance of doing some damage, but we were unsuccessful. But I'm interested to try it out again. It's definitely one of my favorite themes for board games. The other, I guess, as we're in a time of a bit more social distancing, the one app I've been trying out quite a bit of is the new Roll for the Galaxy app, which is really well designed and has been a lot of fun so far.
Awesome. What about you, Sean?
Nice, yeah. My gaming has been very limited lately because of the lockdown, and so no regular gaming group. So a lot of tabletop simulator, which means a lot of our game prototypes and a lot of other designers we know playing other people's games. But recently did some board game arcade, board game arena. I always mix that up.
Correct.
Board game arena.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we did Downforce and Potion Explosion, and there's been a handful of games on there. So I actually got to play Downforce for the first time, and it's a really, really interesting game.
And that was it the original or the one that Restoration fixed up?
I think it's the Restoration version.
Okay.
On
It's
there.
the Restoration version, and we talked about that, and we had a hard time figuring out what the original was like because we don't even know where to look for it. So I'm always I'm really curious about what they changed.
That one I'm not as familiar with personally. What they changed, like a buddy of mine had the original Stop Thief, and then we got their version of Stop Thief, and he was like, he told me like blow for blow what they changed. I'm like, okay, at the core it's probably going to be very much the same because that's what they try to do. They try to keep the spirit of the game, but then of course modernize the mechanics a little bit.
So modernized in terms of the mechanics. Like I can't imagine a game like that existing and it not being a bit more of a classic. So it makes me think they must have changed or improved something. So I'm always interested in finding out what it was that in its original form.
Well, so we've asked what games you've been playing lately, but since we are going to be themed right now, we do need to know what your guys' favorite donuts are.
Well, this one's easy for me. I would just love a plain glazed donut. I'm super boring like that, but that's my favorite. Just keep it simple.
I don't disagree with that. I think with those, it's extremely important that it's from the right place. You can get some pretty bad plain glazed donuts, in my opinion, but I still go back. My fallback always is Boston cream. Definitely my favorite. And then I don't think it is as much in the U.S., but then there's the maple cream in Canada, and so it's also pretty much just as good.
Okay, so and the maple cream, is that like?
It's just maple instead of chocolate. Yeah,
it's maple instead of chocolate. Okay, I could see that.
That's beautiful.
Sounds delicious.
It's good.
And on the Canadian donut trivia side of things, there's also there's a few weird donut terminologies that are different between Canada and the U.S. So like one is like a long john. I'm sure you've never heard of that, right?
I've heard of long johns. Yeah.
I'm gonna like I'm pretty sure that's like it's just like the long like rectangular donut, and I'm pretty sure that's a Canadian term. And then there's also like calling a cruller a cruller.
Yeah.
It's like a pronunciation thing. And I don't know, there's a lot of things that are Canadian versus American, but there's also like Midwest versus everywhere else. So there's a lot of stuff that we have in
Yes.
common with, like, Minnesota and other parts of the Midwest coming from Manitoba. So I always get confused now that I'm living in Seattle as to like what the Canadian terms are, but I always find those things really interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, being only 30 minutes from the Wisconsin border, and
It's a lawless land.
it's interesting what's Midwest versus what's Canadian versus what everybody else does, because it's a little bit of a blurry lines when it comes to it.
Yeah, it's just so dependent on what it is. Like some are pretty hard boundaries, and some are spread,
Right.
into the Minnesota, Wisconsin area.
So that's a little bit about you guys and what you like. So let's start talking about Flatout Games as the collaboration between the two of you and Molly.
Who is Flatout Games?
So Flatout Games is, like I said earlier, we're really kind of a do-it-all game collaborative in the sense that we primarily started off just designing games. We started off with our friend Justin Ladia, who's a graphic designer, was originally part of our team. So it was the four of us that started it way back in 2017. And so the first game, actually, so Dollars to Donuts is actually the first kind of real game that we designed together as a group, and so it's now, or on Kickstarter now, I guess. The first game that we had published as a design group was actually Point Salad. So that was a game that we designed in the later part of 2017, got signed in 2018, and then came out in 2019. So, just a testament to the amount of time it kind of takes to go through all the process of making a game, of course. And in 2019, a friend of ours, Kevin Russ, had a game. It was just a paper prototype of a tile-laying game that he had called Quixotic Quilts, and we played it, and we're like immediately enamored with the kind of the mechanisms and just the simplicity of this really puzzly game. And that game ended up turning into Calico, which we published, which we're currently is about to get on a ship fulfilled to backers very soon. So that'll be our first game that we actually were behind the publication of. And so to do that, we built a team of collaborators and formed what we call the Flatout Games collab, which is basically the three of us founding members, Molly, Rob, and myself. And then we've added other people to kind of come on a project by project basis to help publish games. So some of those folks include Dylan Mangini, who actually did the art and graphic design for Point Salad. He's part of our collab, and he does a lot of graphic design for us, as well as David Yetzi, who's a board game designer who actually works at Wizards of the Coast right now, but he was heavily involved in development on Calico. So we just kind of here in Seattle knew a lot of folks, that really good designers, developers, graphic designers, etc., and said, hey, why don't we make a go at making this game? And Kevin was really interested in the publication end too, so he was really instrumental in being really involved, getting to kind of work on the development of his own game, getting to help promote it, travel to conventions and stuff. So forming a collaborative to get the project done was a lot of fun. And so we've kind of taken that now as a model that's been pretty successful for Calico, and we're kind of moving it forward. So that is all kind of one division, and the other division is we still continue to design games, just the three of us. Molly, Rob, and I do a lot of game design and development and generating ideas and building prototypes and that sort of thing. So part of Flatout Games is really still focused on kind of designing, really generally speaking, really kind of like simple, light games. We really like really rules light stuff, kind of family gateway, and just taking like different themes. We like real world themes and taking like simple and novel kind of mechanisms and just trying to boil them down to like very simple interactions and that sort of thing. So Point Salad's kind of a good example of the kind of games that we really love. They're just really straightforward. You could teach them to anybody, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the way that our design team is focused. And so yeah, that gives us a real opportunity to work with a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. So we have really great relationships with different publishers we're working on to publish our games, and then just good relationships with designers for people that were interested in helping them make their games.
Nice.
That's really awesome.
Rob, do you have anything to expand on that?
Yeah, not too much. I'd say, yeah, mostly design on the first bit for the first while, and then waiting for the right opportunity when we found games that we were very passionate about, that we knew that if we weren't involved in the publication, that we wouldn't get to be involved in the game. When that came around, when we felt it had a vision, when we felt the game matched what we want, almost what we feel we understood and knew what was solid about the game and what we could sell people on, it kind of solidified that was going to be our first attempt at our own publication.
Awesome. You guys kind of touched on it with who Flatout Games is, but is there any other games or projects that you guys have been involved with?
Well, yeah, like as Shawn mentioned, Point Salad was our very first published game. Not necessarily one of our first designs, but one of our first, not the first, but right near the start. We've also had Public Market go to Kickstarter this past, I guess, winter. Dollars to Donuts coming to Kickstarter this year. Truffle Shuffle being released by AEG, kind of what would have been their big game night this summer after Point Salad last year. You know, that coming out this year. So those are some of the other ones. Shawn, remind me if I'm missing any.
Yeah, the big one that we're gearing up for is we're going to be launching a Kickstarter this fall for Cascadia, which is kind of a follow-up game to Calico. It's another puzzly hex-based tile laying game designed by our good friend Randy Flynn. So that's another collab game that we've been really busy getting ready, and that'll be going kind of out to reviewers and stuff soon. So we're just in the final development stages and getting all the art finalized for that one.
Yeah, Calico, Cascadia are the two where we're the publisher rather than the designer, and it really fits that same mold of Calico. Easy to learn, surprising depth, that sweet spot of being available for everybody to sit down and play.
That's awesome, because I actually am a big fan of games that are easily approachable, but like your crunchy Euro gamers can still enjoy too. Because if you get a bunch of like heavy strategy players around Point Salad, yeah, it could be a pretty cutthroat Point Salad game. But you can also teach it to young ones, old ones, kids.
My girlfriend hates any kind of competitive games, but she actually enjoys this game because she can't be mad at me for more than 15 minutes. So.
Yeah.
I guess that's the beauty of it.
Right. But by the time you're mad, you're already done and counting up points and going, oh well, next time. Let's start talking a little bit more about Dollars to Donuts, and because that's the new current baby that you're working with.
Shawn, what exactly is Dollar to Donuts?
So Dollars to Donuts is this is becoming a theme. So it's a puzzly tile laying game. What's different from this game that Calico and sets apart from Calico and Cascadia is that this is the one that we designed. It uses 1x4 tiles, so not your traditional polyomino game where you've got the kind of Tetris shapes. These are all the tiles in this game are kind of the same, these long bars, and the kind of, I guess, unique part is that it's really more about matching what's on the tiles onto adjacent tiles. So what you're trying to do is create donut matches, and you can do that by creating perfect matches of the same type of donut and then creating these kind of mismatched donuts where they're one half of one thing and one half of another. And that drives the kind of economy mechanism, because if you mismatch donuts, you get dollars, and the dollars can be used for other things in the game. So effectively, your players play as donut shop owners, and they're trying to create the best displays of donuts to sell to different customers that come in from 3 different neighborhoods. So there's a lot of kind of simple puzzliness to it. It's basically a kind of light medium Euro style game with kind of limited luck and kind of market based interaction and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the gist of of the game. But again, it's one that you can play with a 6 or 7-year-old kid, because surprisingly, kids these days are really good at spatial puzzles, and so they can definitely compete with their parents. So it's a really great family game, and the theme is bright and punchy and colorful, and everybody loves donuts. So it's been really fun to kind of work on bringing that to life, working with Crafty Games, the publisher, along with Dylan Mangini, who also worked on the art for Point Salad. It's the same. He's also doing the graphic design and artwork for Dollars to Donuts.
And then, so where did Dollars to Donuts begin? What was the idea of, like, let's make a donut game?
So I think what you said kind of puts a little bit of a light on our design style. We definitely didn't go into it saying, let's make a donut game. What we did was, honestly, I think the first, we had like a Monday meeting to say, okay, yeah, let's try designing games. And the next week, Shawn had 1x4 tiles with half circles, and forgive me, it's been over 3 years, so it's hard to remember exactly, but had 1x4 tiles with these half circles, and said, well, how could we make this into a game? And so that was really how it started. For me, it was just instinctively, why wouldn't it be donuts? Because we wanted that ability to, if it's a perfect match, that's great. If it's partial match, that's okay too, but not as good. And then what would that mean? How do people make decisions? How do people make choices? If it is these tiles, then the question is, how do people get the tiles? Are they just dealt them? Do you just pick one? And then the bidding aspect or the purchasing aspect came into it. Then, of course, if you're going to spend money, how do you get the money? Well, that's from matching half donuts. That's when you get the money. So it happens pretty organically that way. And just as time goes on, we pretty much come with an idea of, okay, well, here's something that we think probably needs to happen in the game. Like, for example, game end. Should it be X number of rounds? Should it be this? I think we all just kind of talk about it, figure out what we want to try first, try it out and see if it works well. And if it doesn't, go back to the drawing board. So the only thing I can really mention is that large, kind of the biggest change from the very first kind of iteration to now is the customer aspect. Originally, it was you get the donuts and they're worth X number of points, but incorporating these different customers did help to make each game a little bit different and make it so that, for some reason this customer wants 4 chocolate donuts, so I'm going to do things a little bit differently than I would in the last game. And then incorporating more uses for the money. So originally you just use them to buy the donuts, but all of a sudden on the back of money is all these other bonuses that you can use throughout the game. So that's where the biggest variation has come in, and it really is just to make each game a little bit unique.
That's great. Like, interesting, like how you keep evolving that design as you go too. It's like, okay, this is the base idea that we had. Let's build tiles, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what are we going to do with these?
Right.
So you start with one mechanic and evolve. Like, what other pieces do you attach to that?
I think anybody who's played Point Salad can pretty easily notice that we do not try and over-design our games. Keep it as simple as you can, because don't add complexity just for the sake of adding it. Add it for specific reasons, and that's kind of what Point Salad was. It was, well, we could, do we add more actions? Well, it doesn't seem like it needs it. So.
Gotcha. And that definitely helps keep it less intimidating, more approachable too. Because the more rules download you have to do to someone when teaching a game is risky.
So I know you went over a lot of the mechanics already. What other mechanics are integrated into the game to really push it along?
Yeah, so like I said, the primary at its core, Dollars to Donuts is a tile laying game. But I think the things that make it a little different is that we kind of realized early on, or kind of asked ourselves the question, like, okay, we're filling a grid with tiles. The primary thing that's different about this is that it's not so much about filling in the board like a lot of polyomino games are about, like kind of Tetrising stuff together. This is actually more about the adjacencies of the different tiles as they touch one another, like trying to make combinations as you fill that board up. The other thing was, it didn't seem like it made sense to restrict players to keeping their tiles on the board. When you have like these kind of long, narrow tiles and you have a bunch of them and you start playing, it becomes really restrictive to stay on like I think it's a 7x7 grid. And so we said, well, that's okay if you go outside the lines. Why, if we make the game end trigger to be the first person to fill their board, and we give a little and we say you get negative points for every open space, it means that you have the flexibility to play off your board a little bit, but you kind of have to catch up. It's a bit of a race game because the person who does the best job of filling the board the fastest will have that slight advantage over the other players, but it's really not entirely about that. And I think the biggest thing that drives the interesting decisions in the game is that it is a balance between scoring the most victory points by creating these donuts to sell to customers, but also that you've got this conveyor belt of tiles that you're buying to put onto your board. And so those have a range of costs to them. And so if you start the game with only $5, and so you could spend up to $5 on your first tile. So the only way to get more currency really is to mismatch some donuts. So it's kind of a suboptimal play because you're missing out on scoring points, but you have to do it every once in a while so that you can continue to get more money to be able to buy better tiles, because you never want to get stuck with a tile you don't want. So being able to buy higher up the market is just a really important part of the strategy. So that, not only that, though, those dollar tiles, as Rob mentioned, have different bonuses on the back. So you might get a half donut that can help fill a gap on your board, and every round you're allowed to place one little 1x1 tile onto your board to like fill space. So it's really I think that fans of the kind of Tetris style tiling games will find a lot familiar with this one, but what I think sets it apart is that those mechanisms, that kind of economic game, although it's a pretty straightforward and light game, there's still some pretty crunchy decisions, and it still is very competitive kind of when you're playing against players who like that spatial puzzle that's a little bit more involved. So that's those are the main things at work. And there's a little bit of set collection to the customers and that sort of thing as well. So yeah, there's a lot of little optimization puzzles throughout the whole game that means that you're going to play it for the first time and you're immediately going to know that there's ways that you could have improved exactly how you set up your board and the types of matches that you decided to make. So that's really what we want, is to provoke that in gamers as they try it for the first time and say, that was fun, I know how I can do better, let's play again. So that's always the goal.
Nice.
Awesome.
Shawn, you hit a lot of like the things that makes Dollars to Donuts stand out. Is there anything else that makes it stand out from other games, or even other donut-themed board games that are out there? Which there are surprisingly a number of them that I did not think that there was that many donut games.
This was one of the questions that I marked off as one for kind of me to focus on, and yeah. I didn't think of it. I've never played any of them. So I'm curious, Shawn, if you have played any of the donut games that we always talk about and see and know about, but how many of them you've had a chance to try out?
So I don't think I've played that many. I've obviously played Go Nuts for Donuts, which is actually designed by a local person from Seattle here, and was originally published by Daily Magic Games, and then before Gamerate got the rights to it or co-published it. And so that was kind of a local one on the scene in Playtest Northwest, which is kind of our playtest group in the Seattle area. So anyways, that one I'm definitely familiar with. That's a fantastic, simple family game that I think does an amazing job of just boiling down this really basic mechanism of just, we have to choose which card we want, and if two of us choose the same one, nobody gets it. It's just that super simple, like, let's all simultaneously pick something, and then it just kind of goes down into like Sushi Go kind of set collection type stuff. So it's that one's a bit of a twist on Sushi Go if folks haven't played it, and I think it does a really great job. It's simultaneous play, so it's snappy. I really like that game. I think it does a lot of things right. So I'm a big fan of that one. I think Dollars to Donuts is obviously less of a light game. It's more of a kind of light medium type of experience. So I think that kind of sets it apart. It might be, we knew that we had to kind of keep this game relatively light because of the theme, in the sense that there's going to be a lot of like interest from family and kids, and we didn't want to sort of like alienate the audience, obviously. So
Right.
trying to keep it so that the rules are really simple, but the puzzle is kind of crunchy was the goal with Dollars to Donuts for sure.
And, like, with that being said, who would you recommend this Dollars for Donuts for? What kind of groups are you marketing it towards?
Kind of a carrier on that. If you played X or are a fan of X, you might want to look at Dollars to Donuts.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think our primary focus is families. I mean, it's a family weight game, but I think folks that like a simple kind of tile laying experience. I think that Uwe Rosenberg's recent series with Patchwork, Indian Summer, and Spring Meadow, I think that's a similar weight class to this. It's casual. I think people that like spatial puzzles will really enjoy this one in a similar vein to those games. And I think that was, Patchwork's one of our very favorite games. So I think, folks that enjoy that kind of polyomino style puzzle game would really enjoy this. So it hopefully can bridge that gap between being something that you can play with your family and kids will get a kick out of it, and like collecting the little dollar tokens and the donut tokens and the colorful art and all that kind of stuff. But beneath the surface, there's definitely a lot of game to kind of master. Your trajectory to mastery on this one, it's a lot of fun because we've played it so much and made so many changes and tweaks to it in development that we feel it's a lot of fun when we get the three of us together and play it, because we're super competitive and have been playing it for so long, and it's still a really big challenge and a lot of fun.
Yeah, the one I would just as I was thinking about it, I was trying to find that one game, and I think maybe Karuba would be a similar weight in my opinion. That similar tile placement. If you're playing with family and everybody's kind of doing a little bit of a lighter game, it works well, and you get those interesting decisions. But I've definitely played those 2-3 player games of Karuba where you're paying attention to where everybody is. You know exactly what tile they're hoping to get, or whatever is the monument that they're going for, and you want to get there first. The same interesting decisions come into, that person wants that customer, so I'm gonna grab it out from under them, or I know they want that tile, so I'm gonna let them go one more round thinking it's going to come down the conveyor belt, but then I'll snatch it before it comes around to them. So those are the interesting decisions that can come out of the game.
That's awesome. It sounds like an exciting game, and it definitely seems in that, like you guys were saying, the light to maybe just past gateway. Maybe you're not your first tile laying game, but maybe your second tile laying game, and have that deepened strategy in there. So that's actually really awesome. And you brought up Yui, and his tile laying puzzle games are just amazing on all weight categories. It's kind of insane how he has become a master of that mechanic.
Yeah, they've always been one of our favorite, the tile laying, just because you take something that can be intimidating and just say, you only have a few choices, pick the best one, play it as best you can, and move on.
Right, and each turn you just kind of keep building on those prior decision points.
Right.
It's always fun to have something where you're building up. I think that's one of the things that we've noticed. Players really gravitate towards at least I think with the type of audience that we generally aim for, people like to make stuff, right? That's the thing that's great about Calico, right? You're building up this quilt, and at the end of the game, you've filled in every little hexagon to make this finished quilt. With Cascadia, our next game, you're building these environments and you're populating them with wildlife, and each player, you'll never play the game and have the same kind of continent again. You're building up your own thing. Same thing with Dollars to Donuts, right? You've got this donut display in your shop and you're kind of doing your own thing. And that's one of the things that make these kind of light to medium weight puzzle games appealing, at least to me personally, is that there's levels of interaction with other players that are fun, but there's not a lot of really big feel bad moments of oh, I'm just going to come in here and just mess up what you're doing. One thing that's amazing about Patchwork and a lot of Uwe's tiling games, in that is that they're really deep puzzles, but they're also kind of relaxing, and they're also just, they let you just build a thing and feel good about it while having those like decision points where, you know, you can be a little mean by taking a tile or that sort of thing. But you're totally right. It runs the gamut from probably the simplest being, you know, Patchwork or Cottage Garden, all the way up to Feast for Odin, which is just one of the most amazing kind of medium/heavy Euro games, in my opinion, because it does the spatial puzzle so well, but also does the kind of worker placement and resource management. So it's really inspiring to see a designer be able to kind of riff on those ideas, which is something I hope like we'll be able to do with tile laying. We've definitely done it with double-sided cards now with Point Salad. Our next game, Truffle Shuffle, that comes out in about a month or so, I guess, at Gen Con time, is another simple rummy style game that has double-sided cards. And so like trying to think about a novel component or a series of mechanisms and how you can just kind of build on the lessons learned from game to game is kind of fun as a designer to keep going down the same road. If you know it's successful, if you know there's something that people have really gravitated towards or something that they really like. I think I certainly as a gamer really enjoy that when I see like a series of games like the Cottage Garden series. I'm like, oh, this is really exciting. I can't wait to see where this goes next. And so I think I've always gravitated towards that series in particular, and Uwe's exploration of tile laying, to be inspired to say we could do that with different mechanisms. And I think it's certainly marketable and something that I think other people like. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like those games are quite successful, obviously because they're designed by a great designer. But I think there's something to be said about series of games.
Yeah, I definitely agree in a lot of that, because like I will gravitate towards personally like designers or a series of games myself of like, oh, they've already done this. I really enjoyed that game. Oh, they got a new game coming up. I'm already interested in checking it out one way or the other, whether it be in a series or whether it's a designer following a particular design path. So Dollars to Donuts is live on Kickstarter for you guys. When is that going till? When do people have to jump on that before it's too late?
I think the campaign goes to August 10th. It's going to be wrapping up August 10th, so got a little bit of time.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
And then, is there anything else that you guys want to pitch or add on before we call it?
For the remainder of the year, it's really Dollars to Donuts for the Kickstarter, Truffle Shuffle coming out to retail ASAP, and then Cascadia coming to Kickstarter, which you can get more info on all those by going to, I guess, our website, flatout.games, or checking us out, Twitter, Instagram, or pretty much everywhere.
Awesome. Well, Shawn, Rob, it's been great talking with you guys, and thank you for your time and energy for tonight.
Yes, thank you.
And good luck with the Kickstarter, and good luck with the rest of the year.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us.
All right, welcome back. That was our interview. I hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah, talked to both Robb and Shawn from Flatout Games in there. Had a lot to say, a lot of creative thought process of how the triple threat that they've created has come up with not only some games that they put through other publishers like Point Salad, but now bringing Dollars to Donuts to Kickstarter so they can self-publish it. I think it's going to be exciting. I wish them the best of luck in their campaign. And if you go to Kickstarter and search Dollars for Donuts, you will find it now. And as I believe Shawn said, it should be good until August. So you have got some time now to check it out, see what it's about, and jump on that if you like it.
I think this is actually something I'm going to pick up day one. It does look very promising. I do think that this is something that me and my girlfriend can play while still hopefully not self-isolated by the time we receive it, but you never know.
I only look for like a week in advance at this point. You know, I plan on being home next week, so, and then I'll let you know what the week after that looks like next week.
If you want to reach out to us, of course, we do have our email, tabletoparcanum@gmail.com. We're also Tabletop Arcanum on all the things, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Reach out to us. We always love hearing from you guys.
As always, thanks for listening, and we will talk at you next time with a review of Point Salad. Happy gaming.
You've been listening to Tabletop Arcanum, hosted by Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, and featuring the original music by Paul Moore and Isaac Gilbert. You can follow us on most social media platforms. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. As always, thanks for listening.